reading from In Search of the Miraculous. Please try, please. Only thought as theoretical and as far removed from fact as modern European thought could have conceived of the evolution of man to be possible apart from surrounding nature, or have regarded the evolution of man as a conquest of nature. This is quite impossible. It is in fact wrong-headed. Evolution is not the conquest of nature, nor is it the conquest of people. In living and dying and evolving and degenerating, man equally serves the purposes of nature, or rather, nature makes equal use, though perhaps for different purposes, of the products of both evolution and degeneration, and at the same time humanity as a whole can never escape from nature, for even in struggling against nature, man acts in conformity with nature. The evolution of large masses of humanity is opposed to nature's purposes. The evolution of a certain small percentage may be in accord with nature's purposes. Man contains within him the possibility of evolution. I contain in myself, within me, the possibility of individual evolution. You, the viewer, contain that possibility of individual, true self evolution. But the evolution of humanity as a whole, that is, the development of these possibilities in all men, or in most of them, or even in a large number of them, is not necessary for the purposes of the earth, or of the planetary world in general. And it might, in fact, be injurious or fatal. There exist, therefore, special forces of a planetary character which oppose the evolution of large masses of humanity and keep it at the level it ought to be. Now, this method of writing over the internet may seem like I am trying to change the whole of humanity. No, no. There are secrets to this method of writing which doesn't have to be done over the internet. This is how I have done it for the last 5 years, and it may very well end. It can end at any time. And so I have other irons in the fire that I have been developing, which I have not even begun to describe, even in all of the writing activity over the internet. There are other irons in the fire. One must not be too dependent on any one, one way to go about this effort and struggle at individual self-evolution. It's been a terrible struggle and trial for me. And for that reason, after 5 years of observing all the responses of people to my work over the internet, that it's all true what Gurdjieff is saying here, that if one endures, follows a definite line of work and endures, certain qualities do develop in terms of true self-evolution, self-individuality. One begins to see things you begin to see things you didn't see or notice before. And it's the mechanical forces of life around us which keep us asleep from being awake and seeing things, seeing the real world as it is. Because we live in an upside-down world. It is not normal to live only for sex and pleasure, for example, as if there was nothing else. And yet we do. The vast majority of us do. It's a terrible, terrible situation in which we live, and we take it for granted. And even in public school, they teach kids sex, which they ought not to do, but they do, and turning them into wards of the state. All of us children raised up in public school, because of public sex education, are turned into wards of the state. This nutty idea of this over-importance of sex and pleasure in our lives, as if there was nothing else. It's a whole lot of useless suffering for nothing.